Controversy rarely eludes anything in life. It's usually found looming over political affairs, workplace policy, or intertwined in other important real-life matters. But what about on the smaller scale of both importance and size? Controversy has found its place over the years even amongst wrestling figures. Don't believe me? Let's play a game of word association, shall we? Mattel, Elite One, Jeff Hardy. Hasbro, Moon on Belly, Kamala. Jax's infamous Chinese New Year. Rikishi in WrestleMania 2000 packaging. And how about Chaos in the Cell? That one still keeps me up at night. There are so many controversies spanning multiple manufacturers that it will make your head spin. So many in fact that they can all not be contained in just one feature video. So sit back, relax, and reminisce about all the misspellings, bizarre towel placements, and false advertising from years gone by. Here is part 1 of the most controversial happenings in wrestling figure history. Where to begin? How about we start at the beginning of a new year? A Chinese New Year! Chinese New Year in modern China is a festival celebrated over the course of 23 days, beginning in either January or February. It is both a social and economic holiday for China, and as such, factory workers get a lengthy sabbatical from the workplace. So how does all of this tie into wrestling figures? Let's flip back the calendar to say, mid-2005. The series was Adrenaline Series 13, a set that included Kurt Angle and Luther Reigns, La Resistance, and Rey Mysterio and Teddy Long. Prototypes were shown in advance, and it looked like a pretty pedestrian release for the time. The standouts of the set were the 3 debut figures, which were Teddy Long, Sylvain Grenier, and Luther Reigns. While Teddy would go on to have a repaint in Treacherous Trios and later a Mattel figure, these are both Grenier and Reigns' only figures. When they shipped, there was a slight unannounced discrepancy. The Angle and Reigns and La Resistance set had old Titantron Live arms, and not the later arms with an elbow joint. We're talking the original jointless TTL arms. Those parts were from 1999. When the word got out that they were all literally just like this, Jeremy Padower, the then Senior Vice President of Marketing for Boys Entertainment over at Jakks Pacific, gave the most ambiguous, unexpected response: Chinese New Year. The meme was born, and from that point onward, any mishaps in part choices or cost-cutting measures were given the all-encompassing explanation of Chinese New Year by the collector community. Of course, upon further explanation, the Chinese factory that assembled the figures simply didn't have enough jointed, Ruthless Aggression style parts for this particular set, though it's not the first time old TTL parts were Frankenstein onto an RA figure. I'm not so sure whether to be impressed that Jakks had a surplus of old Titantron Live arms at home, or disgruntled that they actually used them instead of delaying the set. Regardless, the no questions asked excuse of Chinese New Year will live on in infamy. Mattel signing Hulk Hogan after patiently awaiting for Hogan's TNA deal to expire was a big deal to classic collectors. Finally, the name in pro wrestling would get his proper due with Mattel. All the eras of Hogan's career, think about it, the pre-Hulkamania days, the 1980s red and yellow Running Wild era, the heel turn at Bash the Beach, NWO Hollywood, the 2002 WWE return, so many must-haves. When the first Hulk Hogan from Mattel came out in defining moments, it only further caused collectors to salivate at the possibilities of what was to come next. After several red and yellow variations were released, Mattel was going to make 2016 the year of the darker side of Hogan. And they were going to start it all off with the classic late 90s lightning bolt attire Hogan from his heyday in the New World Order. This was a figure so many of us dreamed about Mattel making, and while it wasn't the perfect body choice and had Hulkster instead of Hollywood on the weight belt, it was still a promising figure. Certainly one that would have sold gangbusters at the time of release. All we had to do was wait until January, possibly even earlier for the first shipment online. After showing off the defining moments Hollywood Hogan at the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con, the Hulk Hogan Gawker scandal broke. In short, Hogan was caught having sex with his friend's wife on hidden camera, and in the tape Hogan confessed to her that he wanted to drop the boot on black people because he didn't like the rappers his daughter was dating / hanging out with. The tape never fully surfaced, but transcripts did, and boy did Hogan get caught up in hot water. WWE banished him from their website, their promotional material, and even went as far as to relieve him of his Legends Ambassador contract. They instructed Mattel to cease production on Hulk Hogan figures. While a few slipped through the cracks due to already being produced, a few re-releases had replacements, and several sets had to be outright totally readjusted. And most depressingly of all, the Hollywood Hogan figure they showed off the month prior was scrapped. As the Hogan racial tirade controversy winds down, there is hope that one day this figure and many more unmade Hogans can finally get released. Who knows, maybe by the time you're watching this video, you may have a Hollywood Hogan Mattel figure on your desk, brother. Let's face it, pro wrestling has a vested interest in targeting children. Action figures themselves are toys, and without children buying them, the collector market is simply too thin to support the entire line. Children make the world go around or something. The point being, when it comes to WWE figures and keeping them in stores, sacrifices sometimes need to be made. This was especially true in the Attitude Era, where very little was truly off limits. Let's start off by looking at a man who fancied himself as an ass man, a man who went as far as to call himself Mr. Ass. How do you market a butt fetish gimmick into a toy line? Jakks found a few loopholes with Billy Gunn. Since Billy also went by Badass Billy Gunn, Jakks thought they can straight up make a new nickname for the guy and call him, drumroll please, Mr. B.A. And it wasn't just a one-off with his Too Tough figure, they did it again with his Fully Loaded figure. And again, much later with his first real scan figure, the infamously orange Billy Gunn from Double Slam 4. They smack it front and center of his t-shirt this time around. Mattel even did a slight bit of censoring of their own with their Elite flashback of Gunn, only they had the sense to leave off the Mr. B.A. business entirely. They also refused to put the Kiss deco on the crotch. Let's look at the other half of the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg, Jesse James. Here's the Road Dogg shirt referencing sexual intercourse. And here's the Jakks Titantron Live figure's answer to this slogan. Road Dogg is now in the doghouse, reports Dave Meltzer. Not the worst cover-up, nor is it the funniest. That goes to Road Dogg's signature Series 5 figure. The actual shirt looks like this, having a reference to his genitalia being down there with an arrow pointing to his crotch. The BCA figure? Well, it's all about that signature. Down where? Down here, baby. Sign on the dotted line. They actually made an arrow crooked pointing to his printed signature. Let's hop forward a bit to the mid-2000s ruthless aggression style era. After retiring, Ron Simmons walked around wearing a t-shirt that simply said "damn" on it in big, bold white letters. Jakks Pacific showed off a depiction of Ron wearing this very shirt, going as far as to keep it on the prototype and even showing it at a toy show for everyone to see. But in typical Jakks fashion, a bait and switch awaited for the MOC protos. The figure came out packed with Ron Simmons wearing a t-shirt that says Farouk. Why he would go around wearing a shirt with his old ring name on it is a mystery. Perhaps this would have been the time to go with a blank shirt if they feared backlash. This isn't the first Ron Farouk Simmons figure with censorship though. For his old Double Slam 5 figure packed with a JBL, or Bradshaw, Jakks took the old APA ass whipping shirt seen here and tactfully removed the ass. It's virtually unnoticeable unless you're looking for it, so well done. At least Jakks never attempted to censor this particular shirt from APA. What would it even say? Always pounding? Maybe just always. APA always. There are many more examples of censorship, but we will talk about that next time. Kamala with moon on belly was and still is to many the holy grail of rare wrestling figures. It's one of the earliest highly sought after figures, causing quite a stir on eBay and in private auctions over the years. The story goes a few ways, but the gist of it is that up to only 24 of these moon-bellied Kamalas actually exist. They were made for sampling purposes, and some of them were disposed of by Hasbro. The ones that didn't are worth a small fortune. Why Hasbro removed the moon and replaced it with a star on the final release is unclear. Over all my years on wrestling forums, I've heard everything from it being a design oversight to it being changed due to possible Wiccan connections with the moon. Whatever the reason, the controversy with Kamala has a lot to do with its authenticity. The amount of fakes, some of which are carded and sealed, is staggering. Some of them are nearly spot on, and others are, well, others. At some point, you could find guides online how to spot the fake moon, with proper circumference and arc and paint thickness laid out in explicit detail. So few legitimate moon on belly Kamalas actually exist, though this one seen here from a German collector named Dennis is said to be the real deal. This is the one you're after, folks. For posterity, here's another from WF member Tirade. You're looking at thousands of dollars of investment for a moon deco hit. Interestingly, Kamalas that have come since and even before never had a problem with the moon, so whatever the issue was strictly on a Hasbro level. False advertising and pro wrestling. Peanut butter and jelly. It seems appropriate that something that melds together so well in real, scripted life gets the action figure treatment too. I don't mean to keep harping on Jakks so much, as they provided the wrestling figures of my childhood, but nobody were the masters of the bait and switch like Jakks Pacific. Let's look at some prototypes that were dramatically changed from proto form to final release. Here's the proto for RA3 A-Train. Jakks were a little kind to his abdominal region, but the application of body hair and scan bring it up a notch. Let's see how this translates over to the final HAA! It looks like Lord Prince A Tenside has done a body splash into his own filth. The nuance of chest hair has not been captured here, to say the least. This isn't a widely known alternative, but Jakks did release the best RA figure of A-Train in Off the Rope Series 6. Better body and less frightening body hair. Here's another example of a confounding part switch. Best of WCW Jericho, which was essentially the Toy Biz Lion Tamer figure in modern RA form, was a hotly anticipated one. The head scan looked fantastic, and all the pieces seemed to be in place to make it a big hit. Then it came out looking like this. A huge balloon head and the same torso they gave the aforementioned Lord Albert, which was also the same torso they used for Brock Lesnar. No kidding, the same torso as Brock Lesnar. Speaking of bad torsos, what happens when you have bad parts with an attire that gets cost-cutted to scraps? That's right, I'm talking about RA29 Edge. Here's the prototype. Great likeness in the face, way better than the Mattel Edges, released a decade later. An admittedly bad torso, but look at that camouflage. It looks awesome. I can't wait to pick this baby. Oh my god, no! All the black camo was left off, killing the figure where it stood. One has to wonder if this was intentional, because not long after, Jakks released a similar Edge in the pay-per-view series. It's almost as good as the original proto, and it has updated tattoos to boot. That's not the only Edge victim to this. There were several that got their camos scrubbed from the final release. Take Adrenaline 28 Edge, for example. The proto had the same bad body choice and this awful screaming head, but look at the tights. We learned our lesson last time around, so nobody was really surprised when this was the final figure. This time the white camo is gone, and the ankles have no camo detail at all. But due to the better head sculpt and torso choice, this one ranks higher than RA29. Why did Jakks make so many erratic part swaps? Edge isn't the only camo-wearing figure to take a hit. Matt Hardy continuously had altered figures, and how about the Dudley Boys? Jakks released these prototype images of the Dudleys in their later days yellow main event tag team look. All the new parts look great, all the details were seemingly there. Then this happened. They both lost the jersey side details, especially noticeable on Bubba Ray, and Devon got his camo reduced while Bubba's remained as is. They're not terrible figures, but sometimes it's the little details that make a figure go from decent to fabulous. And hey, speaking of fabulous, what about the fabulous Moolah? Her prototype may have used the generic diva body, but they went as far as to pad her outfit and included a bejeweled jacket for her to wear. Those are actual plastic jewels on her coat. Surely Jax wouldn't skimp on a classic Superstars figure, right? Welp, never mind. What happened here? Keep in mind that this is probably the last Moolah figure if her real-life controversy keeps gaining traction, and this is the jacket they came out with. This. It looks like something they'd put Dusty Rhodes in with all those polka dots. Another 70s and 80s name, Chief J Strongbow, was also included in Classic Superstars. Here's the proto, with a beautifully done Native American headdress. All the feathering detail is remarkable, and at this point, nobody had faith Jax would actually release something like this. And we were right. Here is the final figure, which looks like your little sister's first draft crafting project. Chinese New Year, all year round. Removing paint or pulling the switcher with parts from the final release while knowingly advertising the false product is a bit underhanded, as we've seen with countless examples thus far. But what about outright deception? Starting off with a softball, here is the Ruthless Aggression 9 Stone Cold Steve Austin that came out in 2004. Austin left WWE shortly after the Goldberg-Lesnar match at WrestleMania 20, so when RA9 came out, Jax decided to seize the opportunity and imply that this random figure of Austin could be the last. I mean, come on. Austin was back in less than a year to the surprise of nobody. It gets much worse when they use blatant deception through misleading packaging. Jax began releasing rings with an exclusive figure and cardboard accessories. They did things like an Undertaker-themed ring with a cardboard coffin, a Carlitos Cabana ring with a cardboard hammock, a John Cena hip-hop ring with cardboard speakers, a Piper's Pit ring with a cardboard backdrop, an Eric Bischoff ring with a cardboard podium, cardboard, cheapy. But hey, it was a creative way to introduce new rings. This controversy isn't about cardboard, but rather the false advertising surrounding Mick Foley's barbed wire ring. It is literally called a barbed wire ring, and it has what looks to be cardboard barbed wire attached to the ring rope somehow. And yet, when you open the box, nothing. Upon closer inspection, Jax deceived kids into thinking they were getting barbed wire ring ropes, when in fact there was nothing said in the inclusion list indicating as such. Think that's scummy? Let's wrap up Volume 1 of Wrestling Figure Controversies with an instance where they outright did lie about what came in the box. You've been waiting for it. Here is Chaos in the Cell. Look at this box art. Let's examine it thoroughly. What do we see smack dab front and center on the box? It's Mick Foley falling through the roof of a Hell in a Cell. Hey, what's it say down there? Action figures and wrestling ring not included. Okay, check. Jax claimed it was an authentic replica of the WWF cell. Well, let's flip over this box then, shall we? Okay, right there is the package contents. It has that this thing is presumably in the package, right? That's a good 2000 era toy replica of Hell in a Cell. It was also the very first Hell in a Cell playset, and it was very anticipated because people were tired of cutting themselves with chicken wire trying to make their own. Let's open it up. Here are the contents. I see some side panels, some gizmos to keep the cell in place and attached to a WWF hardcore ring, and what looks to be some scaffolding on the side. So, where's the roof? Where's the roof? You just got Chinese New Year, son, there is no roof! They advertised the damn thing to have a roof in the package contents. Let's look at the back again. Look at this verbiage. Open ceiling to allow figures to enter from above. Yeah, that's one open-ass ceiling, alright. This thing caused quite a stir over on AFR forums back in the early 2000s. But the cage was only around $10, so some people bought it knowing full well that it was blatant false advertising, because it was still a fair enough deal and a solid enough cage. Jax later altered some of the boxes to reflect the actual product, and they re-released it in various forms, properly calling it the more apt term of a steel cage each time. While far better Hell in the Cell accessories have come since, it would have been nice for this one to see the light of day since it was supposed to be the very first. Oh well.
Here we go!
Well, that's about enough wrestling figure controversies for one day. There's still plenty more to come in Volume 2, including some recalls, some misspellings, and maybe some pantyless Stephanie McMahons. I don't know, we'll see. So subscribe to Wrestling Figure Legacy and share and like this video to see more controversy.